happy New Year, everyone, and welcome to 2024. Thank you so much for tuning in to Studio Biz and all that jazz. And I wanted to kick off this year with a very special guest. Now, David Greenwood is a coaching client of mine and a studio owner of many years. I want to really share with you the success story that David is, because when he first started, he started quite small, as we usually do, and he's really grown his studio to 350 students plus in a regional town. And I think it's really commendable what he's achieved. And, I've been a part of that development journey over the last year, and I've loved seeing his studio business and his production business as well go from strength to strength to strength. Now, I really want to celebrate the public launch of my membership program, Studio Biz Success. And to do that, before we kick into this interview today, I just wanted to let you know that I'm hosting a free 3-day coaching experience. It's called Studio Accelerator. So if you want to jump into that, the link is in the show notes. Head to joeweek.com. Now, David Greenwood is an accomplished theatre professional with a passion for performing and producing engaging theatre experiences. Over the past 15 years, he has staged more than 100 productions in the Geelong region, serving as a director, producer, costume director, costume designer, a technical staff member, and a studio owner. And, like we all do, we wear all the hats, and David knows all about that. He's also served as a committee member of the Musical Theatre Guild of Victoria for 5 years, which, shows his commitment to the theatre community for sure. He's a skilled actor and singer with a strong performance background, having worked with numerous organisations, including Opera Australia, Qantas Ads, Geelong Lyric Theatre, Footlight Productions, and Blink Dance and Theatre. Now, his passion for the performing arts is totally evident in his work. I actually went down to Geelong for a VIP intensive coaching session for a couple of days, where I worked with him and a couple of his studio admin and teammates as we really fine-tuned some of the elements of his business as he moves into 2024, bigger and better, which is really exciting. So he is so committed. It really is such a wonderful thing to watch. Now, David oversees his weekly educational programs for ages 4 to 18 within his studio CentreStage, which has over 350 students and an additional 100 students receiving private singing and dance classes. So those 350, that's his group programming. And then in addition, he's got 100 private students, which is pretty phenomenal. David has also owned and managed CentreStage for almost 15 years. So he's been a studio owner for quite some time. And he also volunteers his time to produce high quality theatre experiences. Now, I really want to mention the reason why I got David on. Obviously, he's my client. I think he's amazing. And I think you guys can learn a lot from him. But moreover, he actually has showcased how his business has grown through standing out. There is so many unique elements about David's business, and you're going to get to learn about that. He's very much about community. He's about, uplifting the youth in his area. He provides everything, which we're going to talk about in this interview, but he provides everything from, emotional support. He has support people on site for children who may suffer from mental health or issues at home. He's a very caring community person, and these sorts of elements and offers within his studio are not seen anywhere within his region. I mean, I've never heard of such a thing. It's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant what he brings to his community, and it shows, and that is why so many people go and are a part of CentreStage. So let's jump into this interview. Like I said, you're going to learn a lot from David, and I think it's going to be very valuable. So absolutely stay tuned after the intro. Hello and welcome to Studio Biz and all that jazz. I'm your performing arts business coach and host, Josephine Lancuba. This show is designed to bring you inspiration, information, and the instruments you need to create and grow the studio biz of your dreams. I will bring you a mix of solo episodes as well as interviews where I tap into the minds of industry experts. My career started as a performer over 2 decades ago. I later became a speaker, theatrical producer, and talent manager, as well as having a successful teaching career in singing, drama, and dance. 10 years into my professional journey, I became a mama of 2, and with a baby on my hip, opened up my very own performing arts studio. From hardship and humble beginnings to 4 studio locations and a multi-6-figure performing arts biz, I know how to attract students and keep them coming back for more. And in the show, I will share with you my experiences to help you thrive and fast track your path to success. I know you have a spark inside of you with dreams and goals for the future. As your coach and mentor, I'm here to help you step into your limelight and be a cheerleader in your ear each and every week. So get ready to be entertained and inspired as we talk studio biz and all that jazz. Hello, we have wonderful David here on the call today from CentreStage, and I'm so excited to have you here because this has been a long time coming, I think.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. We've been talking about this for almost 12 months, I reckon.
Exactly. So I'm so glad to have you here. Now, for everyone at home that doesn't know who you are, I'd love you to introduce yourself and let everyone know what you do in the world and a little bit about you.
Yeah, so my name's David Greenwood. I own CentreStage, which is a theatre and education provider based in sunny old Geelong, down in the south part of Victoria. And we've been operating for about 14 years, but only recently made the decision to make it my full-time job. So I have always been juggling a full-time job and managing our own sort of entertainment/education business.
Yeah, that's so exciting as well that you were able to step outside of that full-time role. Tell us a little bit about that. Like, what did you do full-time, just so that people can learn a little bit more about you?
Yeah, so I was an advisor for federal and state government. My background is marketing, so I'm big on branding with our sort of organisation, but a lot of advising in terms of art and culture and marketing strategy for things like the Olympic Games, the Com Games, and large-scale events. So they sort of naturally supported each other, and but all the whole time, CentreStage is my passion project.
Yeah, and now CentreStage has taken the center stage.
Yes, yeah, it was a big step, and I've been toying with the idea for just prior to COVID, and I nearly took the step right before, and then obviously COVID hit, so that sort of always puts doubt in your mind when you come out of it going, "Oh, what's going to happen?" But finally got myself into a position, go, you know what? Let's give this a crack for 6 months and see what happens. And then worst case scenario is we can always do something on the side again. But for 6 months, we're going to give it a red hot crack.
And you are giving it a red hot crack. I mean, you've built this studio that you have now to 350 students, which is phenomenal. You've got, you've created that in-house talent management service as well. And, this is just fab, because just for everyone listening, David is actually, one of my coaching clients, and we've had a lot of work done over the last few months. And I think it's really great to see the development of the business. I mean, you already had a fab business, but just to see it change and evolve over the last few months has been really exciting. But tell me about how you actually got started yourself as an artist, and where did it all begin?
Yeah, so I was involved in community theatre down in Geelong, and Geelong is a very competitive theatre environment between dance schools and theatre companies. About 17 in the space of about 5 or 6 kilometre radius. So it is quite heavily saturated. We're very lucky being a regional town with that much theatre and arts. There's obviously only so many students in there, but I had a couple of experiences with local companies, and I was like, oh, probably would like to do this, or probably like to do that. And I've said that so much often, someone said, well, why don't you? I thought, why not? I was relatively young, I was still at university, and I thought, let's just give this a bit of a shot. And I made mistakes along the way, don't get me wrong. But naturally, originally I went into theatre events first. So we stage musical theatre at theatres around Geelong. And that was our introduction to theatre. And for the first 7 or 8 years of our company, that's all we did. We didn't do any education, we didn't do any agency. And that all those things came as a natural progression to where we are now.
So you started more as a production-focused group, and then you moved it into the education side. How many years ago did you start the education stream and the studio stream?
So the education program is 6 years old, just hit 6 years old this week, so it's very exciting for us. And that was because we would do often shows like Oliver or Chitty Chitty Bang Bang that involved 30 or 40 or 50 kids on stage at any time. And a lot of parents were like, it's great, we're doing 10 weeks or 12 weeks of shows, but what happens to the rest of the 40 weeks of the year? And I'm like, actually, that's not a good, that's, it's a bit of a, why not are we doing it? So I had a lady called Michelle who was an actor in one of our performances, and she was a school teacher. And I was chatting with the idea, and she goes, "Well, why not?" So the first year, which was 6 years ago, we said, "Let's just have one class of 30. Let's just see what happens." And we put out auditions, and we had 60 kids the first year, and we rejected about 35. And we just physically at that stage didn't have enough brain space, enough staffing, enough facilities to manage more than 60 kids in our first year. The second year, we went up to 120, so we doubled our numbers, and we had to still say no to people, and we just couldn't grow quick enough. And each year, we've progressively had about 100 new students coming in, or thereabouts. Plus, obviously, we have the 7 or 8% that drop out each year just from graduating or whatnot.
Yeah.
The benefit is that then they go into our mainstream theatre company, which is where they stage the show. So we sort of get them for their whole lifespan now, from ages 4 to 104. So we feel like we're trying to not cover the whole market, but at least support Geelong for most people's whole generation.
And it's so great because, obviously you're still producing those shows for young people, but you're also now developing them in that singing, dancing and acting area. And that's so fantastic because it means that not only does it increase the quality of the shows because you're able to nurture and develop the talent, but it's great for the kids. I just think it's a community thing that they get to be a part of all year round. And I've actually witnessed that myself.
Yes.
Because I came down to Geelong. We did our VIP intensive days there, which was totally amazing. And I got to see one of your shows and I could just feel the community vibe. And I loved that so much. I mean, you had someone, selling charity stuff in the front and you've got the bar going and people chatting, and it was a really good environment. And I loved that so much. It's really interesting that you talk about, this is what I love about you, David, that you know your numbers.
Yes.
So you were able to say we have an attrition rate of 7 to 8% per year based on these reasons. A lot of studio owners do not know this stuff. And they'll know it like, oh, we usually lose about 10 kids, right? They might know, but they don't actually know it from a percentage perspective. I actually think this is really important. Why are you so in tune with that? Like, how did you become so in tune with the numbers and put an importance on that? I know that's something that you're very capable of doing. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so prior to when we were sort of relatively small, it was the 5 or 10 kids would drop out at the end of the year or throughout the year for whatever reason. And when we started getting to around the 250 mark, we're like, this is a different shift in business here that we have to start thinking differently. So when we got to 250, which was always our goal, and we made a big deal of it at the time, everyone got staff bonuses and everyone was very happy and the teachers were all loving themselves. But it was a good chance to go, you know what, we're resetting here and we're putting a new way of thought. So we went to percentages around that 250 mark. And it's because I know, my background is business and marketing and data, is you get to a certain point where you're either not profitable or the amount of students versus teacher ratio doesn't quite work. So we thought, are we losing that quality feeling of being family and that Geelong theatre essence? Are we losing that if we get too big? And so we've always been about, okay, as we get bigger, what is that percentage being the same as when we were prior to 250, or is it still the same? So as we grow, we're very keen to make sure that number doesn't definitely increase, and that the only time we're losing students is because they're aging out of the education program.
Look, you're going to lose students. And this is the thing, especially when you're in such a competitive market, and you are in Geelong, it's a very competitive market, which I've recently come to discover. And you mentioned, there's 17 other, was it theatre groups, but then there's also just studios, right? Because then that's your competitor too. Not just that, I think studio owners need to recognise as well that our competitors are soccer, netball.
Absolutely.
It's all of it,
And even the sibling soccer game, because it doesn't fit in with the class schedules. So we often we find that Saturdays are our best days. We used to have weeknight classes, and we struggled with the football matches and the soccer and after school productions because most kids do their school shows as well. And so we found Saturdays fit in best but it obviously puts a lot of pressure on us as a company to run, I think, 12 or 13 classes simultaneously at different venues on the same day at the same time, managing 30 to 40 teachers at once. But we found a great knack to it, and now we're able to explore back onto those weekday activities and see what we'll do in the middle of the week to try and grow.
Yeah, absolutely. And you will find that there will be people engaged during the week.
Absolutely.
But, you know, it's okay to have your best day, but that doesn't mean that there can't be other days, you know?
Yeah, and at the moment, in weeknights, we do private lessons at the moment because we can staff that, because most of our teachers are VIP registered, which is like just your teacher certification. And because they teach all day 9 till 5, they often don't want to teach from 5 till 10 o'clock at night again. So we do a lot of private lessons. So we have industry professionals that come down on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays, and they teach, and they do half-hour vocal lessons or half-hour filming to camera lessons, and they're all booked by private appointment. And that's how we try and fill the weeknights at the moment.
Let's talk about that. So being regional town type of studio, staffing,
Yes.
you've mentioned to me before, can be a real issue. How do you combat that challenge? Like, how do you move through that?
Yeah, it's very interesting because we are so competitive down here. There's, you know, what we've started trying to introduce, and we have done for the last couple of years, is you know, really going on conflict of interest. So if someone has a role within our organisation, whether they're a dance teacher or singing teacher, we have certain areas that they're like, you know what, they're unique to CentreStage, because we want our students to be able to get a unique experience rather than finding that all 16 of the other competitors or whatnot can offer the same teacher, because that's what creatives do. They jump around from business to business to get the hours. So a lot of our staffing actually comes from outside of Geelong. We do have about 30% of our staff live locally, but the remainder are all coming from Melbourne. So that's, you know, 45 k's away, and all travel down. So that obviously impacts our rates that we pay our staff, because they're trying to, you know, have to sort of be advantageous for them to drive down, you know, put petrol in the car. But for us, we found that most of our teachers are, because we're offering them more and more opportunities, about 5 or 6 years in, that we haven't had a teacher leave for a very long time. When you have 30 teachers, we're very happy with that, because we try and treat them well and obviously pay them well. But our retention all comes outside of Geelong, and all our staffing comes outside of Geelong mostly. We have Bendigo, Ballarat, Wyndham and Colac and Werribee. So they're all 30, 40 k's away at least, where our staff come from.
And we did talk about having a more intensive student teacher program. But that's obviously a long-term goal. But yes, I do think that's something.
Yeah, I actually just bought the badges, and they've just arrived. They're literally on my desk here, and we've just implemented what we're calling student leaders.
Yeah, beautiful.
We're picking 2 students out of our senior, older classes that will come on in their final year as like a mentor or a student leader or a class captain, with the idea that they'll come and start teaching for us in our junior levels the following year, or come on casual relief, because they've been with us for a few years. They know what we do.
Yes.
And they're taking on that role.
Yeah, so that's a long-term plan that we discussed in the coaching sessions, but I do think that's fabulous that you've implemented that. So well done. I do think that, you know, it's so important to really nurture, especially because you've got senior students. I think it's different for a studio that's, you know, a preschool studio. Well, we get that. That's not going to work. But if you've got that senior student base that loves you and is going to be looking for employment, you know, it just makes sense to train them up. And we talked about, you know, because, you know, you do have your standards, which are very high.
Yes,
we love that, you know, but obviously just looking outside of that and saying, you know, who has potential and who can we really work with to develop? Because at the end of the day, it's more sustainable if you can have those local teachers, you know.
And just for even staff sickness, because, you know, a staff member from Melbourne has to take an hour to drive there. So just if they call in sick on the morning, it's hard to get a replacement in the morning. So that's where those 30% of these teacher-student mentors are going to definitely come in handy. And I think when we actually went out for coffee on the first day of our VIP intensive, 2 of the baristas there actually said, "Oh, how do we apply for a job that we're ex-students?" So it was nice that our ex-students are already over it before we are any as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, talk to me about, we've said, okay, you're in this competitive zone, and you've got this marketing background. What do you think gives you an edge? Where can studio owners, from your experience, because you've built this 350, you know, student studio, which is quite phenomenal in a very competitive space. How do you think you stand out from the rest? What are you doing in your marketing, or what is your approach to standing out?
There's probably 2 key areas, and I understand the first one's probably not always possible for a studio owner, but it's always about being present in the moment. I'm big on making sure that I don't teach any of the classes. It's not my skill set, but I make sure that I pop in either with a coffee for a teacher or go, hey guys, and everyone goes, oh, hey David. But it's about making sure that I know all the students' names and I know all the parents' names. So I actually have every single parent's name saved in my mobile phone. It also helps if you're getting phone calls on the weekend. But it's about knowing every single student is for me. And I think that's the difference, that quite often these people go to a dance class and 12 months later, like, oh, little Bobby did great. And they're like, who's Bobby? And it's about, and the second one is we try and give a lot back. And this is probably one of to our detriments sometimes. But we're very generous with scholarships and donating to, so if our kid has a shaver-thon or, cancer cancel, we're always donating to every single event, because that's who we are. If we can't give back to our local community, that's one of the reasons why here, where we're situated, we're in the north of Geelong. We're the only theatre company that's out this way. And this is like the red ferns or the really low socioeconomic areas, the Centrelink. North Lane's actually the highest rate of unemployment in the whole of Australia. And we're based in that, and that's where we are. We're dead in the centre of it. And so that's why we're understanding of who our customer is and who's around us, and know that not everyone can always afford either a full price, a half price, or can we tie in with another organisation to actually pay their fees. So we know who our people are, and that's known by knowing the kids' names, the parents and their stories. And that's what our big goal is as a studio owner. And my team have to know all their students, is about knowing every single kid and know what they get most out of them.
I have to say that's commendable, because I certainly would not save 350 numbers into my phone. We must talk about boundaries, David, but that would be another conversation, I think. But you are a generous human, and I know this. So yes, but that community focus and that energy you have for that community mindset has really put you above the rest. But also, it does bring you into, just because you're in a low socioeconomic area, doesn't mean that you're not a profitable or studio. And I want people to know that, because I think it's really, and you bring home your salary and you're paying yourself and your team, and you're able to do that all through your business. So that can be a challenge in itself, because sometimes studio owners use the low socioeconomic and the tough times and the economy and inflation. Not like it is real, but it can be a little bit of an excuse that people use. How do you move through that, like in relation to your value, your worth, and while still understanding your customer?
And I'm no professional on it. This is what I realised with our last intensive training day a couple of 2 or 3 weeks ago. But I understood the difference between value and what the physical cost is, and they're two very different things.
That's right.
So whilst it might cost a student $100, what's the value to them is very different. And so what we're trying to do is offer more value than the cost, but not the cost to us. So that's the jig. So my time might be worth more than one of my assistants' time, but how do we put that into the greater perspective?
Yeah, it's all a value proposition, isn't it? And like I said, I mean, and I've said this on the show before, people bought tickets to Taylor Swift, and not everyone could afford them, believe me. Like,
absolutely.
I think people that were like buying tickets on Afterpay and whatever, like, I think people put value in what they put value in. If people want something, they will find the money, and people value their children's happiness.
Absolutely.
So obviously you got to be price considerate for your market. That's understandable, but you also can charge for it. And I think this is a testament that you have these students in an area where, unemployment is high, yet people are coming to pay for your service. And that is pretty phenomenal.
Studio owners, stop right there, and do not fast forward this very quick promo, or else you will miss out on an amazing update that could absolutely transform your studio business. This January, I am hosting my January Studio Biz Kickstarter event. This is 3 days of free coaching for studio owners. Do not miss out and register now. You will learn how you can gain enough traction in your business to really create the dream business that you desire and deserve. If you're feeling uninspired or need new ways to engage your students and grow your studio biz, then this event is absolutely for you. In the 3 days live coaching, we're going to strategize in different ways on how you can grow your studio through energized support go from revenue focused to profit focused and really create a dream studio biz, the one that you desire and deserve. Head to joeweek.com and register now. Link is in the show notes. See you there.
Let's talk a little bit to the agency side.
Yes.
Now, I know that, I know, but not everyone listening knows. So I have a course called Talent Manager Bootcamp. You were a part of that as well. And you completed that. You were like, I want to represent my students on screen and on stage and be a musical theatre agent and all of that jazz. How's it going? So tell everyone when you started and how that's tracking for you.
Yeah, so officially we started last January or thereabouts, so nearly 12 months. That was in terms of paperwork. We had, it was a big battle for us to get the naming rights and the trademarks, and that's something we've overcome, and we're really happy about where we are, and to get the certifications to make sure that we could get on casting platforms. I think it took me close to 3.5 months, and Josephine you're very kindly trying to help me, give me advice on who to speak to. But meeting up with people in LA when I was there on holiday to try and make sure we could get the certifications and bits and pieces was just crazy, not heard of before. But we have around about 60 represented students at the moment, and that's actually going to increase. We've got our next open casting day, so we've gone from one intake date a year to monthly intakes, just to help get those numbers up to where we want them to be. We found that we're a bit too exclusive, so we're pulling back a little bit. They still have to audition and whatnot for us, but we're allowing monthly intake, and that's in January, and the sign's looking very promising. So we're hoping between another 40 and 50 students. So we're almost doubling our intake within a month. But it has been a bit of a battle, I'm not going to lie. It's been a new player in that you have to sort of keep your head up. But I guess at the end of the day, I realised our job is to get the students auditions. We can't always guarantee them the work, and that's the hard thing to explain. I think a lot of our families are very supportive, because they're all getting auditions. About 90% of our students are actually getting auditions. It's just they're not landing the final job, some of them, and that's where some are, but the bulk of them are just missing out on that last step.
Yeah, and it takes time, and I think that's why when we talk about having an in-house talent management service, I think it's beyond the booking. It's about creating opportunities, having those, it's another revenue stream in your studio, but it's also providing them with the chance, isn't it? Because you got to be in it to win it, right?
And that's where that value comes back, that they couldn't do it without our support. So
yeah, absolutely. And it's so great to see over 90% of the people that you're representing now are auditioning, and that will increase, and eventually people will book, and the traction comes over time. And you don't have to fly to LA, everyone, to get things.
No, I was just.
But David's just OTT, okay? Yeah. I just want, if you knew, okay? Yeah. He will do whatever it takes.
There by coincidence, and it just happened to fall in the right spot.
Yeah, no, and that's so fantastic. And sometimes you do whatever it takes, and I love that. Like going the extra mile again for your community and for what you want to achieve is pretty fantastic. Okay, so talk to me about in relation to those competitors in your space, and you've got agency competitors, you've got studio competitors, musical production group competitors. What do you find most challenging about that? How do you view competition, or do you embrace it? Like, how do you see that in your space?
We do embrace it. We do know we have a fairly large difference between our company and other companies. And that's on the basis that we have a lot of mental health services attached to our company. So during COVID, we realised, or a little bit before that, the importance of actors off stage. So whether it's COVID related or mental health or whatever but we actually have a nurse on site now that comes and speaks to and they can actually book in it and get referrals to psychologists and whatnot. So that's a big difference that we offer that no one else in Geelong does. Because we know that if our actors aren't mentally and physically well, they're not on stage. And so we offer that to students, to our actors, to our staff. And so it's sort of like our EAP program, but even the parents and family members can access it by booking at the time with their nurse. And it means
is that a free service for your
free service? Yep. Our nurse volunteers for the service. She does it all free out of her own support. And it's more to make sure that if we lose those kids, so if we have, I think there was one time we had one show where we did Priscilla, and it's a very LGBTIQ. It's a lot of mental health. There's some themes in there that are probably a bit racy. And every night before rehearsal, she'd have a booking of with 8 to 10 people, 10-minute appointments each, just getting referrals or support. But we could have lost 8 to 10 cast members on stage. That would have then effectively shut down the show, or it would have, or the tickets that they've sold, all those bits and pieces. So we find it's just a retention thing. Where we differ from other companies a bit as well is, like I said, we like to know our people, and we have to be understanding that sometimes, these actors are not always paid for their work because they're doing a community production. So we have to understand that they have other lives as well. So we're a bit more flexible in terms of if they have to miss a rehearsal, or if they're in multiple shows at once, or if they get an agency or a pro gig, that comes priority over their non-paid work as well. So we're a bit more understanding than the other companies.
Yeah, I love that you have support. So again, this comes back to knowing your customer.
Mm-hmm.
You know your customer, you know who you serve, and they are, like you said, we've got some issues around employment and mental health in the region. Okay, that's fine. You know this. So why don't we do something about it and provide a mental health service for our students and our family and our community? That is amazing. And that is a value, so valuable that, I mean, I can't imagine anyone else in your area doing that. Or correct me if I'm wrong.
There's no one.
Yeah, that's right. And so, it's things like this that I believe make you successful, because they know that when they send their child there, regardless if they have anxiety issues, mental health issues, whatever, that they are going to be cared for, that there's support. I mean, I saw there on site you had some sort of a room outside, which was like a hangout lounge for the teens and stuff, which was really cool.
So that's our Karinga room, which in Wotherong language is our local First Nations, is the Dreaming Room. And that was actually fully funded through a grant program by our federal government, federal member. So actually mental health didn't cost us anything to actually implement. It was just our time physically in terms of coordinating the grant and the building works. But this program, has won multiple awards with ANZ Bank and our local Business Excellence Awards. We've also got a federal award announcements coming up very soon that we can't announce yet, but it's getting national recognition for what we're offering to our actors.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Now, even someone like yourself with all of this knowledge and experience in marketing and this performance background and, having this successful studio that you've built over the years, even someone like yourself has come to me and said, hey, Joe, I need support and help.
Yeah.
And this is interesting because this is the thing, guys, everyone listening. Everybody needs a mentor at some time in their life. I get mentorship, I mentor others, I get mentorship. There's always someone that can teach you something, and I love to learn, right? I love to learn. What are the benefits of coaching, like receiving help from a mentor, someone like myself? What do you think the benefits are?
I think for me, when high achievers and people that are quite straight down the line is what I want, we often don't always connect with every single person in the world. We're good at very faking it. But when I did your boot camp, I realized, Josephine's not only talking the talk, but she's actually walking the walk. And we've had a lot of coaches and mentors through our lives that come in and they just don't get the arts. It's just someone that just have no idea what's going on. Where I was like, okay, well, Josephine knows what she's talking about. So I thought, and I actually liked you as a person. You passed the pub test. And so for me, that was, the first decision going, you know what? We need help. We've always been at this level. We've always been pushing for that next step up. We've gone from a small business, from sole operator to, having 250 students, 300 students. Now we have about 150 staff and contractors, which is just crazy to think about. But I was like, well, what's the next level? And I don't have that skill set or the thinking to quite just get over that barrier. I know once it's there, we're fine. But it's going, okay, well, how do we clean up what we've got and move on? And I felt like you've gone through a very similar process with what your background is. Same sort of, a bit more student numbers than us. You did professional performance opportunities. And I was like, okay, well, Josephine's actually done the work that we're trying to do. So this is an ideal coach for us.
Yeah, and I think as well, just getting the clarity and the confidence. So my word for 2023 was clarity. And I continually go back to it. When I pick a word for the year, I'm serious about the word. Like it's on my desktop, it's on a post on the wall, like continually remind clarity, And I feel like coaching does that. Like I feel like in our sessions of recent, you've gained clarity, but you've also gained confidence, because even though you know your customer, I feel like you got a little bit too generous over time, and it was time to say, you know what, I can actually ask for a little bit more from the people I serve. And that can come in price, that can be in, maybe reducing some of the inclusions. And it doesn't mean the quality is reduced because there's so much there, but there is a reality when it comes to business, and that is that, we are here to make money at the end.
Absolutely. We've got to pay our way. We've got to pay the mortgage.
That's it. That's right. So I love that you gained that. You mentioned that I passed the pub test.
Yes. Yeah.
So tell me, what attracted you to my coaching style?
Originally it wasn't. I didn't come across it. So it was actually. I used to have my father is a bit of business mentor in my life, as everyone's parents do, and he actually saw your Facebook ads pop up and tagged me in it. He goes, "Oh, this person sounds a bit legit," and so that's when I did the talent boot camp. But for me, the way that you explain things is, if you can see I don't get it in the way my face and how it presents, you explain it a different way, and you realize that I love percentages and love numbers. And when you drew it out, that was just like the absolute light bulb moment for me, because when you find out you're only making $1.80 a student per week, it's just like, well, what is this? This is just crazy. All this work and hours, and you're not even.
Yeah, there was a couple of programs where you realized, oh, this isn't what I thought. Yeah. And that's good to map that out for sure. So your dad found me. Great. Awesome.
Yes. Yep. Thanks, Dad. A 75-year-old on Facebook. That's exactly what we need in the world.
Perfect. What would you say to studio owners who are looking to grow their studio and needing support? What advice would you give them?
The first one is obviously connect to someone that knows what they're doing. So Josephine, you were my connection. I think what you provided me in terms of knowledge and advice and training, that would be the first step, is always going to something with the knowledge. For me, you were able to provide that to exactly what I needed. And the VIP intensive days that you came down to Geelong was able to go, you know what, this is exactly what, as a business, and actually look through everything, is what I need. I got a bit of a taster in the boot camp, which launched our agency, and we had great success with that. And I go, okay, well, how do we take that further? The next step is don't take risks. If you don't know what there's no calculation there. Like, just don't put money into things that are losing money, essentially. If I kept going the way I was going with the education program, it would have been maybe all right for 12 months, 24 months, but then we would have been in the exact same boat where we are now, and there would be no growth, and struggling to pay. If you're struggling to pay wage at the end of the year because you've got debtors and you've got people aren't paying their fees, is actually do the calculations, make sure it's right before you go in. So one of the big things we've come out is, if the student's value, to say for the sake of it's $1,000 per year, and it costs, and you put $100 into advertising a year, well, that's 10% of that student's fee. You could drop in $1,000, and if you only get one student, you're still breaking even. And for me, that's where we go, what, maybe we need to adjust not only what we're spending in terms of marketing and recruitment and the way we recruit our students, but we did some changes in that, whatnot, and we used to be in that mindset. And, we picked up 87 students in a month for our next year's recruitment. And we've just started our second recruitment part, which are all virtual additions to join our program, which we're going in January. So we expect another 80. So we should have 160 new kids this year, just with that mentality change from what I learned in your program.
Yeah, and I love that so much. And also, look, here's the thing. Don't take risks. But what you really mean, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, is you want to take calculated, strategic risks.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's not just throw caution to the wind and go throw money at the problem. Sometimes as studio owners, as business owners in general, we throw money at the problem. Oh, look, that's too hard. I can't look at that. Oh, they want more money. Fine. Oh, last minute decisions, throw money at it. That can come down to marketing, printing costs, everything from costumes.
Buying them online versus having someone make them is totally two different prices.
Yeah, and it's all of this stuff, and sometimes it's like, oh, too hard basket, throw money at it, without even looking at the bottom line. That is when the business starts to tumble slowly. I've seen it too often.
And there's only so much, we talked about generous, but there's so many donations I can make until it impacts the business.
Yeah, so setting a budget to community, the fact that you contribute to community and those sorts of donations, there's no problem with that. but what percentage of your business
Absolutely.
are you willing to contribute? So if you say, right, well, let's say 3% of our business is towards charitable donations, then you go, right, well, that's that amount and that's it.
Yeah.
How am I going to spend that money? You know, and it's just those little tweaks that I think people don't consider. Not to turn this into a coaching session, David, but
oh, I'm taking down notes.
But yeah, I think even just actually, funnily enough, I've got a mentor myself, as I mentioned, and she has a percentage for giving. And she says, right, you know, it might be 5 or 10%, but she's in a different bracket. You know, she's a multi-millionaire type person. But she's in a different bracket, but she says, okay, so I'm going to give 10% of everything I earn to charity. I'm going to have 20% of everything I earn go to my wages. I'm going to put 10% of everything I earn into profit. I'm going to put this into that, expenses of the business, marketing, travel. And so she's basically done a pie chart and said, it's a percentage allocation pie chart of different categories that she wants to live by, but also serve her business with. And that's how she does it, like X percent, 30% on wages, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And so that actually is great, because I think when we think of it from a percentage outlook, it is powerful. What can happen too?
Scary.
It is scary, because sometimes you might go, oh, okay, so I put $10,000 worth of something towards something, and you go, but I only earned $100,000. I'm making this up, by the way. Let's say you earn $100,000, you put $10,000 in charity, and you go, shivers, that was 10%. Can I actually afford 10%? And these are the questions you need to ask yourself as you go through this process. But yeah, I do love that. And I think, you know, again, you knew 87 people joined, and I love that you know that. So many people don't know how many people they even have in their studio business, but just knowing those numbers and looking from it from a percentage outlook is really fantastic as well. Tell me, because we're coming towards the end of this chat, which I've very much enjoyed. Who or what inspires you?
So in real life, my grandfather passed away when I was in my teenager, was in the choir that really sings for the Kings, about 100 kids there. So he was very hands-on when I first started CentreStage, and that's a big part of where I am, is because of him. And my family was not theatre related at all. You know, footy, fishing, sports, that was my family. So he was the only one who sort of had that connection to the art. So that's where the passion came from. But in terms of, you know, business, I look at the likes of, you know, Eddie Perfect and what he's doing for Australia. I'm very lucky I got to meet him a couple of weeks ago in New York and spend some time chatting with him. But someone like that, that's pushing hard, not just for himself, but also for the betterment of his community. And his community is a bit bigger with being, you know, Australia. But he was someone that I gained a lot of information from, in terms of how he picks himself out of bed every morning, and, you know, whether his competitors, or, you know, whether the Americans that don't always necessarily like Australians and what they bring over, how he gets up and faces those comments every day. And I think for me, that was really inspiring, to know that it's not, even though he's super famous, it's not, you know, isolated to one level of business. You know, he's facing the same battles that we sort of face every day, with our competitors, or even just
Teach me about that, getting yourself out of bed every morning. Sometimes we have those days. What do you do to help yourself?
Yeah, so
days that are low.
Yeah, so other than my cats, I love cats. But you have to realise, you know, and the big thing we do is, on my side wall here, I put up all the cards of all our students every year to actually go, you know what, this is why they do it. Seeing their smiles in the day. You have some, you know, when we had COVID and we're cancelling shows and cancelling classes, and Victoria, the state of lockdown, you know, we're very lucky to keep going through all that. But, you know, and I'm a big thing is that I don't get gifts. And I say to kids, I don't want any gifts. I just want cards. Just write me a nice message. And so every day in my office, I have all my cards pinned open, and it says, you know, thank you for an amazing year, or thank you for driving me to my audition this week. Because sometimes I drive kids to auditions, being too generous again. But, you know, but it's nice reading those and go, well, that's why we do it. Yes, we're here, and we're, you know, financially we're here for reasons, but what gets you down when you have those awful days and you need to be in the office at 7 a.m. because you've got a kid audition at 8 a.m. on Zoom, and you want to make sure you're there just in case. That's what gets you out, is all those little cards and bits and pieces that sort of, you know, and there's smiles when you see them on stage.
Yeah, I love that so much. What does success mean to you?
My success means that I can spend time with family. At the end of the day, you know, a big thing is, for the last sort of 10 years, I haven't had a day off work.
But we changed that, didn't we?
Yes, my 3rd week in of taking Mondays off because I work weekends. So I've had 3 Mondays off. Yes. So, and my staff have all been, they were taking Mondays off, and that's just what it is now. So for me, my family means everything to me, and that's our number one rule here: is that family always comes first. But I never put my family first.
And that's the thing, isn't it? I like that you've said that. And, you know, this is something I've got my membership program, Studio Biz Success. And, you know, we talk about the business side of studio ownership, but also the life side, you know, boundaries, taking time off. I love that you're in week 3 of taking a day off work. I hope you get to at least 2. But the point is that you're making steps. And I think that is really important because the whole thing you just said, success is defined to you by spending time with your loved ones, right?
Yeah.
I think if we can have us run the business and not the business run us, that is the key, you know?
And being financially able to, you know, which was, I never thought was possible working for myself now, officially. But knowing I've got that ability that I go, you know what? And I have to respect my staff that need time off as well, because whatever reason that, you know, it's just sort of, I've always done that in the past, but never sort of looked at in my own backyard.
Yeah. And that's the thing, like I do like my annual planning day, which link is in the show notes. Link is in the show notes, everyone. Annual planning day for studio owners. And one of the things we talk about first when planning out your year is, where are you going to take your holidays? That is the first step. Block your holidays out first before you project manage the hell out of the year and go, January this, February that. You know, we're going to do every Wednesday, we're going to do this, every whatever. And then by the end of the year, you've got this mapped out plan, which is great. We've implemented a new program there. We've got shows here, competition dates there. And oh, whoa, wait a minute. I've just realized 6 months into the year that I didn't block any time off. And that is not the way. Like if you value time, which most people do, then it has to actually be considered in the project planning, in business planning.
My time off was at a theatre conference, talking at a theatre conference, or taking 20 kids to London on a West End trip and chaperoning. That was and that's not a holiday. And
that's right. But I'm glad you've identified that, and I think that's really key. So what's next for you? What's happening? What's coming up?
Yes, so we're deep into one of our productions of The Music Man. So we have 3 weeks of shows at the beautiful new Geelong Arts Centre in March. We're about to take a group of 20 kids and 11 adults over to London they spend a week in a West End camp and get to go on Broadway, West End, and perform at His Majesty's Theatre. So we get to do a bit of that. Lots of shows, lots of kids programs, and then of course the agency is taking some big steps at the moment to really solidify itself, not just within the Geelong market but in Victoria. So we're sort of pretty heavy into that at the moment in terms of where my concentration is.
Yeah, that's so fantastic. I love that. That's amazing, and that you're going to the UK. That's pretty exciting stuff.
Yeah, and to perform on His Majesty's is just going to be mind blowing for those students. You know, and they spend a week with called the West End Stage School, so it's a partnership we made up there, and they do lots of little master classes, and then we go visit some key, you know, touristy things in the UK.
Yeah, and make it a whole experience for the students. You know, that's fantastic. I love that so much. So how can people find you?
So they can find us on our website, which is centrestage.org.au, or our Instagram or our social handles are just at CentreStage Aus, AUS, and they can find us through all those.
Yeah, amazing. We'll make sure we pop a link in the show notes for everyone that is listening or watching today. Thank you so much, David, for coming on Studio Biz and all that jazz. I'm so excited, and I can't wait to continue seeing your growth. And just really be your cheerleader along the way. I think what you've done is pretty phenomenal. So congratulations.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you. Take care.
Thanks.
This episode was brought to you by my signature group coaching program, Studio Biz Success, an amazing and accessible online educational platform for performing arts studio owners designed to help you grow your business with confidence and get your results. Check it out at josephinelancuba.com, along with other great industry resources to help you leap into the studio biz you deserve. If you love this episode, be sure to share it with your friends. You can tag me on social media at Josephine Lancuba and give it a review. Your support helps the show to grow so I can continue to provide you with useful, informative content. I'm Josephine Lancuba, your biggest cheerleader. Thanks for listening and shine bright.